You know, Malaysian, we have Jojo, a young and rising fighter. Actually, he lost to his opponent in the last fight in Thailand, in Bangkok, by the name of Ondash, Ramadan Ondash. You know what happened was he was known. I'm trying to make it a bit controversial so that not people enjoy this conversation. He is known as a person who like to do trash talk. So he said a lot of good thing about him, and then he tried to create drama with the opponents.
Jojo, do friends call each other out? What did you think when Ramadan called you out after his bin?
I mean, it is what it is. You know, everybody wants a piece of Johan Ghazali. Everybody wants a shot. Everybody wants to get the eyes that I bring.
But the good thing about Jojo is actually he is doing that for marketing purpose, but he learned so much. You know, for these fighters, when they learn, they use technology. Because of the recording is so easily available now, they really look at their opponent from the way they perform during the fight. Whether he use more of leg or he use more of hand, then they start re-strategizing just like military. Look at your opponent and then study and learn from how they do it because you learn from your mistake.
Yep. I had a good start. My co-author for a book called Executive Dharma, we had our early morning reflection on some of the lessons from the book, and bonus reflection for both our conversation. Yep, it's brilliant. And right after this, I'm going to Penang to visit my mom. That will be another bonus. Yep, looking forward for a great weekend, Ali.
Yeah, speaking of weekend, I know not many people have this opportunity to talk about something that we learn together. And instead of just spending Saturday doing fun stuff, fun is very subjective, very personal. To me, talking to you is privilege and also a fun thing. Yeah,
Thank you. Same here, same here.
yeah.
Lovely.
So, I mentioned to you I want to talk about what we learned in the class session that both you and I attended, thanks to Nadrin and our classmates. You remember how many six classes we attended, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, and this claps learning. Yeah, why don't we give a big clap to ourselves that we've just completed the six classes? It's not easy, no, juggling with other
Yeah,
priorities. Yeah.
beautiful. If our audience are wondering why CLAPS, because CLAPS stands for Certificate of Learning and Performance Strategies. Strategies, yeah. So it's not merely compiling content, memorizing content, and vomiting it back in a form of exam papers, but defining strategies. And this is what our conversation going to lead. Yeah. What are the strategies to make learning meaningful, impactful, purposeful, and bring results?
Yeah, this is my immediate learning point. First of all, I like the word learning and performance. I always refer to the industrial standard, which is L&D, learning and development. So if there is one thing that I would go around and then tell people what I learned from class is really you cannot just learn and memorize and answer exam, as you mentioned, but how do you perform? I think that's what I like. And the other thing is actually the assignment is not called assignment, it's called practice.
Beautiful.
It's really beautiful. Yeah. So one of the motivation for me to learn more about learning and performance is about how do we improve our life. And you, as someone that I know who's really passionate about learning transfer, how do you reflect the overall before we get into a bit more detail from the learning transfer process?
Yeah. I mean, Hurley, you've been in the IT world all your life and working in global companies. Uh, Accessing information is no more a challenge. It's in our fingertips. We can hire the best consultant in the world in the name of AI Of course, with a bit of screening and reviewing, because AI can bullshit too. But with a bit of reflection, we can get the best information available, especially if you use it right. But I always tell my friends, knowing about exercise is not going to burn calories or build muscles. So learning transfer literally means like what we talk about, performance. How do we apply learning at workplace where it matters? And most important, getting the job done is always an interdependent activity. For example, let's say you send your best engineer to go and learn a brilliant AI tool. And today, no conversation is complete without mentioning the word AI, right?
Yeah.
But if the bosses are clueless, if they are dinosaur mentality, if they are not facilitating
Mm.
the optimization of AI, and we, the engineer, may get certificate in AI, but performance may not improve. So learning transfer here means how do we apply learning at workplace? And one of the most significant factor to make it happen is organization, more so leaders' role in make it happen. So that's what I like about this course called performance strategies.
Mm. I want to touch a bit on the word strategies. Uh, I think it was conscious decision that we, or Nazrin, our teacher, decided not to use the word systems or framework, but it's strategies, because you use the word where it matters. That means there is this adaptation and timing when you will be applying, when you will be performing what you have learned. Uh, I like it you mentioned about AI. Yes, I think I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to work in large organizations, global organization, and then doing IT. You know, so when AI comes in the year and time that we are living now, it reminds me of when I started my career in ExxonMobil. I was an IT engineer. I traveled from one oil rig to another oil rig. But before I started my work, my boss told me, "Hurley, you come to ExxonMobil. It is for IT, and remember this: IT is just as good as the problem it solves." That was one of the earliest statement that he made to me. So now, I I know this guy, my good friend here, the robot, right, is trying to capture the world and replace you and me. But if it doesn't solve our problem, it doesn't serve the purpose. I really feel it has to be for a good reason. That's where when you mentioned about knowing the purpose of learning and then how we want to make it meaningful, I think is key. Uh, I don't know, but as a Muslim, right, we have this. Uh, you need to the first verse actually is Iqra, meaning baca lah. You must read, you must learn. So I think in other culture, maybe something that you can relate to the philosophy of the book, that it's not just about, first of all, not about just getting rich because of knowledge, but it's about bringing in purpose and perform to why we are, in fact, exist in this world, which is actually to create benefit to others. But one thing I learned from you also, how do you be useful? So that's where knowledge is very important.
Indeed, Hurley. I recall clearly how you almost brought tears to all my members of Toastmasters Club. That was many years ago when you shared the book, Living with Meaning, and more importantly, or more relevant for us, is also living
Yeah.
with meaning. You
So
know,
thanks for reminding me that this is the book that I wrote about my son. He is born with cerebral palsy. He's totally bedridden and dependent, and he's just behind me in the other room. But thanks for reminding that. In fact, I find when we talk about claps, we talk about learning transfer. There's a lot of learning that I learned from my son, even though he cannot even talk to me. I'm sure learning doesn't have to be from this robotic AI, but from anywhere that we consciously want to learn from.
Beautiful, beautiful. I just love the whole idea that we can learn from everyone, everything. And that brought my idea, if you remember, Cikgu Nazrin, in our last class, talk about, is it safe to admit mistake? You
Ah,
recall that?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. What is your thought on that? Is it, and how is it related to learning?
Yeah, mistake is the best teacher. Experience is the best teacher. You can read book, you can look at YouTube, and you know what happened with YouTube? It has this algorithm. When you learn something, regardless positive or negative, it keep teaching you the same topic. So now, when we talk about mistake, a lot of people say that, did you learn from your last mistake? So I think it's very important that we are able to accept mistake, because that means there is this humility in us. Because to me, mistake is very important to learn from, but without humility, you will never be able to learn.
You want
Uh,
to help me and our audience early to
mm.
share some of the best lessons you learned from mistakes?
Yeah, there's a lot of, okay, let's talk about, y- people know me because I like to talk. When I talk too much, there is problem with me that I don't listen.
Mm.
And I tend to, because first of all, if you look at my eyes, right? For audience, this right eyes is squinted. So for me to have eye contact is a bit difficult. Therefore, I can talk without thinking whether that person actually listening to me. So recently, I made a contact with a good friend. I wanted to be a good friend of someone from Australia in Melbourne, and he is, I can't mention name. There's commercial impact there. He creates this framework on learning about ikigai.
Nice.
Because I talk too much, I hardly listen to him, that I did something that was not appropriate from the contractual, from the friendship that we built. It wasn't something that I should say, right? Uh, it wasn't sensitive as far as personal, but it didn't align with what we planned. Why? Because I didn't listen. So now back to learning, right? I lost him as a friend. He blocked me totally from LinkedIn. Totally
Wow.
blocked me, and he blocked me on WhatsApp as well. Totally disconnected from everything, and it just happened like months ago. Why? Because I didn't listen. Now, if you ask me, beside this learning transfer, what else do I want to learn? Maybe from you and from other people. How do I listen better? So yeah, it's very important. In fact, it's very interesting that I learned that the Chinese word of listening is ting, which is combination of heart, eyes, and ears. So that's something that I just learned from my mistake. So you need to just not listen from eyes, bring your emotion, bring your mind, and make sure that you are present in that conversation.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I recall one very, very senior military officer, Colonel Zaidi. He later became a leadership consultant. There's one phrase he said, every change starts with A, B, C. A, B, C. Awareness before change. So in your case, the awareness of the significance of listening, and you brilliantly related that with the whole traditional Chinese character for thing, and that is a great start. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. For me, of course, there will be volumes of mistakes. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, I mean, in our previous conversation, we spoke about my role in the warship building project, the new generation petrol vessel. I was part of it for 14 years, from 2000 to 2014. If somebody asks me what is the best lesson I learned from the mega project, is on the 16th July 2005. Our project was a national newspaper headlines, not because of the success, but because of the failure. We screwed up big.
Wow.
And
Headline.
now, indeed, national newspaper is a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar project.
Mm-hmm.
And I still keep it as part of my resume because we fail not because of technology. Our technology partner, Blom and Voss from Hamburg, Germany, is among the most advanced shipyard and technology leader in the design called Miko Design,
Mm.
where our ship was built based on that design. And we had a lot of experience, military officers, Navy officers who are trained in among the best Navy training school in the world.
Mm.
So it's not about learning, it's not about technology, it's not about capability. It's beyond that. So that even though that happened almost 21 years ago, today many of us are excited about AI, have access to information, can use multiple AI tools. But that experience is a reminder for me
Mm.
that technology alone cannot ensure performance. And mistake is the great teacher. I remember a phrase, mistake is an event, but not a person. And
That's good to
talking
hear.
about mistake, I remember in my early days in the military, this was in a military school in the United States. I was introduced to a center call, CALL, stands for Center for Army Lessons Learned.
Wow.
Center for Army Lessons Learned. We can do whatever we are planning early. When the bullet is right in front of you and your body are you lost lives and blood and no planning going to assure you if you don't learn from the incidents, reflect and make decision. Agile leaders like you may be more familiar about it.
Yeah. I think that's very powerful. You know, the impact was so strong. In fact, you're a very good learner. You remember the date, you remember the people, you remember the time it happened. Because that also reminds me of what I learned in the other organization that I worked for before, in Shell. Uh, I was a project manager. As a project manager, we have to use what we call the framework for project management. This framework requires us to start with stage 0, 1, 2 until 6. 0 mean before project, you create project charter. Something that we must do before we close the project at stage 6 is create lesson learned. A project manager who wants to start a project must start at 0 to look at the document of lesson learned before you even start a new project. So when you mentioned about that bullet in a war situation, right? It's a life and death situation. If you didn't learn anything and when it was really bad. So in my case, I run like multi-million and sometimes could be billion projects for oil and gas. If you don't learn from what happened in the past, it can be really, really bad. So I think the question is when we reflect on what we learned in the claps, is how we learn, how we remember, and most importantly, how we perform using what we have learned. I think that's very key. Yeah,
Nice,
yeah.
nice.
I now it's also remember. Just let me finish this story because when I joined the next oil and gas BP, no audience can Google. It calls the Gulf of Mexico incident. The Macondo. BP lost billion and billions of money because of people's mistake at the oil facilities that we had. And because of that, the organization was changed, almost bankrupt. And oil and gas has no option but to take security, safety, and everything that relates to safety seriously. And how can they learn if they don't have a good transfer mechanism, the mindset, and the people? It's quite similar to the military experience you had. But it's just that uh, the impact is really bad. I think I really find what we learn from all this culture that we try to build through clubs. I think is critical.
Beautiful. Yeah, before we go to the next topic, so something that I want to reinforce, and thanks for your sharing too. That means it's not only safe to admit mistakes, I think it's critical, it's very, very important for us to acknowledge mistake and use it as a data point. And like what we do in project management, the project closure report is not only celebrating all the success story to come out with a newspaper and perhaps improve the stock market or reputation and so on. I do agree, perhaps it's not easy to uh, tell all the mistakes. It's commercial in confidence and sometimes reputation and so on. But the least is we should keep a record for ourselves, an organization, and keep learning from that mistake, perhaps celebrate mistakes, because in shipbuilding, we used to say ships are very safe in the harbor, but that's not why we build ship. So
Mm,
if people who don't want to make mistake, they can stay in the harbor.
correct.
But
Yeah.
that's not what military or warship is all about. Yeah, it's
Uh,
going to the mighty ocean and face the challenges. And a good soldier is one who can manage the challenges, perform under the toughest condition, and rough sea make great sailors.
Rough sea made great sailors. I think that's very powerful. Yeah, yeah. You
That's right. That's right.
you remind me of an event that I attended last week, KL Learning Day in my current organization, Swift. And the one of the presentation was around in order to experience the wave, you need to get into the water. I'm
Yeah,
sure,
I saw that. Yeah.
right? So if you don't jump into the water, you don't practice it, you won't be able to learn. But more importantly, how are you learning? And I want to bring back to the conversation around the project management. The one that I mentioned to you from stage zero to stage six is what we call as waterfall. And nowadays, maybe our audience would be very familiar with agile. And one of the key important, not key, I think that's really, really the heart of agility, which is retrospective. If you don't do retrospective, you don't reflect, or in Malay and in Muslim, we call it muhasabah, you cannot learn. That means there is no improvement. Kaizen, the Japanese culture of continuous improvement, the heart of it is learning. Without learning, you cannot improve, for sure. Without learning, you cannot have innovation. Without learning, you and I wouldn't be able to be online doing now because we learned so much from COVID time to go online.
Right.
Yeah. So I think this is really relatable to anyone that listen to us, regardless of how old you are, because you only stop learning when you are in a different world already.
Nice, nice. Early, if you remember, one of the discussion with Cikgu Nazrin and our fellow classmates during claps is the environment for learning. In your decades of experience serving global organization, uh, can you share your thoughts? What are the right environment for creating good learning?
Yeah, I think that's very important. We talk about the rough sea just now. I think rough sea is what gives you the situation where you are not in your comfort zone. Getting out of your comfort zone is very important. So the environment has to be challenging enough to the point that it brings the best version of you. The least that we can learn actually is just to compete with ourselves. If we can get better from our version yesterday, there is a learning. So how do we create this environment? Uh, from my experience in large organization, something that I think Malaysian organization or local can do more, I think we have not done enough, is having this what we call a psychological safety. Oil and gas, we are so much into the physical safety about fire, about safety. Let me be very frank. Sorry guys, if you are in oil and gas, you just worry about safety because of money. because of the financial impact. But let's talk about getting better. If you there is this psychological safety, that means you allow people to make mistake. Of course, you don't repeat the same mistake. There's no learning there. But what's critical is really having this mindset that mistake is the one that gives us opportunity to get better. So leaders have to be able to allow for their team members to make mistake, and in fact to encourage experimentation, and therefore you get result. The language has to be correct. It's not that you're encouraging people to make mistake. You encourage people to experiment. You encourage people to be able to suggest. Uh, a slightly different story, can be sensitive as well. My wife is a teacher. She just left home actually to go to school. In our school environment, if teachers make any mistake, they are being blackmailed with CISPA, which is a system for you to complain about the teacher. So whenever a parent come to school, jangan saya sampai saya CISPA-kan cikgu. What it means basically, don't wait until I make you viral. You know what it means?
Wow.
Basically, you stop people from experimenting, you stop people from being innovative. Where is the learning there? You create a fear environment where it kills off this initiative and whatnot. I'm sure in military, with the rank and file and everything, you may have observed something. How about in the environment that you were in before in military? How about that psychological safety?
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Hurley. Your question brought me a memory of, wow, 33 years ago. Was it? Yeah, 1993, when I was reporting for a new unit, KD Planduk, where I'm still in Lumut Perak, yeah, at the Royal Malaysian Navy Training School. My superior, Commander Mazuki Andong, then, remember, this is a military unit and I'm a young junior officer reporting. He showed me a poster on his wall. He said, "Prabha, read that." It read, if two-person thinks the same all the time, or rather, if two-person agree with each other all the time, one of them is not required.
Mm.
If two-person agree with each other all the time, one of them is not required. So listening to you, psychological safety, which our Cikgu Nazrin also shared, are we creating an environment where someone can raise their hand and say, "Prabha, what you are saying is wrong"?
Mm.
And imagine if you are a military commander or you are a chief executive of an organization or even a minister. If someone say you are wrong, are you going to be having the humility to acknowledge and take action?
Mm.
Failing which, organization can collapse, government can collapse, family can collapse.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very important element of psychological safety that I learned in the military. But of course, military and everywhere else, yeah, in Bahasa Melayu, we call adab, yeah. Just because you know something, adab means manners for our global audience, yeah.
Mm.
No, we come from a culture where manners is very, very important. So how do we phrase it in the right way? Some may call that emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence. So phrasing in the right way is very, very important. But as a leader, are we creating an environment where people are sharing their thoughts?
Mm.
People like me, who I'm 61 years old, who grow up with typewriter, my grandchildren, or okay, my grandkid is too young. My children can be my teacher. This is what we call reverse mentoring. So if someone is uncomfortable to being corrected or pointing out a mistake,
Mm.
that is a big opportunity lost. So that is my reflection, Ali. In the military, like I said, the Center for Army Lessons Learned
Mm.
is a reflection, but everywhere else, I mean, You need to be aware. When do we say?
Mm.
How do we say? What do we say? Even fish, if it open the mouth in the wrong place, it end up in the frying pan. But
That's a
fish
very
has to be.
powerful one. Fish opening mouth at the wrong place will end up a different frying pan. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that is the environment that we
I,
spoke
I, I
about.
want to touch a bit on when you mentioned about the adab, right? Manner. It reminds me because in most of the faiths in the world, religions, uh, humility is critical to learn, and therefore all the holy books actually talk about history. It's all about stories, right? Whether Muslim, Christians, or maybe Hindu as well, it's about stories and what we learn from the past. I recall one of the rituals in the Muslim practice is ambil wudu, ambil air semayang. Before you pray, you must clean yourself. So there's one of this story is a boy saw an elderly doing the ritual wrongly, meaning you need to wash your face, you need to wash your hand, then you need to put a little bit water on your chin and so on. But it was wrong. So what the boy did was he didn't go and then tell uncle you are wrong. He stood next to him and he demonstrated the correct way. And that old man looked at him and said, "Thank you so much. I learned something that I realized I made a mistake." There are two lessons here. The first lesson is the manner or the adab of the boy. And the second is basically he showed and demonstrated the right one. And the other adab is basically that elderly that was willing to accept that the boy was correct.
Beautiful. Wow. This is something I remember. Adab belajar and adab mengajar. That means the, the art or rather the manners required to be a good teacher
Mm.
and the art of being a good learner. In the Indian culture, we have the same thing. We call that Sisya Tanmay. Sisya means a student. What are the attributes, the character of a good student? And we spoke about listening. Are we really sitting down and listen? Are we asking in the right question at the right time? Do we have the humility to be aware that what we know is a drop of sand, or rather a handful of soil compared to the whole world? So
Mm.
that humility, because sometimes kids can Google and get some answer in ChatGPT and think they are clever or we are clever. I can make the same mistake too. So this is very, very important. I'm glad we are speaking about the environment for learning and something that as a teacher all my life, I want to emphasize just because we are able to teach does not mean learning happens.
Mm.
Teaching is what we, the teachers or whatever name we call that, mentors, professors, whatever. Teaching is what we do, but learning is what happened to the learners. And in most of my classes, I remind the definition for learning,
Mm.
change in behavior.
Ah.
Like what Imam Al-Ghazali said beautifully in Bahasa Melayu, ilmu tanpa amal sia-sia.
Mm.
Learning without action is waste.
Mm.
Another ancient thought leader, Tiruvalluvar, the Tamil wisdom called Tirukural, it says the same thing. Katka kasadara, katpavai katrapin, nitka adarku taga. Quite a mouthful, but what it means is whatever we learn thoroughly, learn deeply, not just at the surface level, or memorize the past year questions, or go for a coaching clinic and just meet the exam requirement. That's not true learning.
Mm.
But more importantly, nitka adarku taga. That means let our behavior is the reflection of our learning, not our LinkedIn post with all the certificates, all the, there's a lot of mechanism in today's world, yeah, where you do one or two assignment and get a PhD, some call that whatever, yeah. I mean, I have nothing against that, but the whole idea is perhaps we need to audit ourselves are our learning reflected in behavior. So
Mm,
these are in a kind of a nutshell where the environment, you brought the idea of psychological safety, where in today's world, learning is always a mutual, collaborative effort, where both the teacher and learner and the fellow learners, we call that the peer learning, where it's collaborative.
mm,
And there's also something we call that the hutagogy, that means self-reflection, self-directed learning, like what you beautifully mentioned, muhasabah diri,
mm.
where the self-reflection can help. So that's it's a nice emphasis. I'm glad in claps, Cikgu Nazrin and our fellow learners, uh, we discussed quite a bit on the environment.
I like you bring this cultural aspect, and I know it's so close to your heart about this, some of the philosophy in Hindu and also in the Indian culture. I want to bring in one topic. The word muhasabah that you use, right? The base word is hisab. If you remember our old days, ilmu hisab, mathematics,
Mathematics,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you measure, you hisab, you calculate your mistake.
Wow.
So when you do muhasabah, you reflect on your mistake. You kira balik how much mistake you did, and then you muhasabah. So really, you have to accept that knowledge come from mistakes, experimentation. Where if I bring this, Indian, Muslim, Malay, as well as the modern world, there is also another one that maybe both you and I can reflect on, which is the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. When that humility means actually you know that you don't know everything. If you know this Johari window, you know what you know what you don't know what you don't know. There will be this area that you don't even know what you don't know. Without this humility, we will not be able to create new knowledge, develop nations, and eventually going back to my living with meaning. What meaning do you leave to the world if you're not useful to others and to yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Lovely, lovely. Living with meaning. Tell us more about how many lives your son touched through the reflection
Mm.
that inspired you to write. This is a good reminder. You don't need all the huge titles and big position and a major AI tool to
Mm.
be useful teacher. Your
Yeah.
son in his own bed without necessary eye contacts, without big words, has impacted millions of people through the reflection, through the sharing, through his work for the NGO that you are affiliated with. I still recall the emotion that brought our discussion. I'm so honored. I had the privilege of meeting him when you brought your family to Lumot a
Mm.
couple of years ago. For the benefit of audience, tell what living with meaning
Yeah.
uh,
I
help
I
us.
think we talk about this reflection, muhasabah, and then it become not just about intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, but also spiritual intelligence. One of the culture that you and I share is not just about being humble or humility, but also being grateful. So to reflect on your question, what I learned that I shared with other people is actually about being grateful. The first impression that a lot of people have when they know someone has a child like my son who is blind, who cannot walk, who cannot talk. If you look at the OKU symbol, no, disability symbol is always wheelchair. My son cannot even sit on a wheelchair. He has to be on a moving bed. So I innovated because I learned from my mistake that he vomited when I put him on a wheelchair. I put him on what we call as like a cart that I can push him. I even brought him to marathon on that card, mini marathon with on that card. And there are these three stories that I shared at the beginning of my book. The first story actually, how many of us remember we have to stand when we are queuing to buy something? or to get something, or some service. So we complain, why do you have to stand so long? My son cannot stand. He wish he could stand, but he cannot. But when we can stand, we complain. That's the first lesson. Number two, actually, we want to eat, right? So we complain that, oh, tak sedap, this is not, this is salty, this is whatever that you expect certain thing. I was in Shimla in India for my holiday. I was at the resort. I recall a family of like three or four. They were complaining to the hotel that they were not happy with the food. I'm not saying it's wrong that they cannot complain, but I'm saying they lost their weekend and holiday on that very beautiful mountain in Shimla because they were just complaining with some small thing. My son cannot even eat anything at all. He has to use pack tube on his stomach and then only uh, milk that is being fed to him. So the lesson from my son, actually be grateful if you whatever that you have. Yes, you can give, you must bring adab to complain. They were shouting that everybody was looking at them. They spoiled their weekend on a very beautiful mountain. And final lesson actually that I shared in the book is when you travel, you want to read uh like book in your flight. So you switch on your individual passengers light. It cannot really focus on you. It slightly goes to the person next to you, right? So the person next to you start complaining. I want to sleep. There's still this glare that comes to you. My son cannot see anything at all. Sometimes I am not even sure whether glare will actually would impact anything that. So he doesn't have that opportunity to experience light. He doesn't have opportunity to experience glare. So now with all this we complain again. The lesson actually is being grateful to what you have, not complain what you don't. So lesson learned is to bring meaning to our life, we need to number one be humble, humility, and bring in adab in how we learn to be humble and be grateful. I think these are very important. I just it reminds me that if you look at glass, either it's half full or half empty. If you look at it's always half full or you still have space to grow, that is the growth mindset that we want to bring in into this learning culture so that we human continuously learn and leave legacy when we leave this world. Yeah, that's what I can reflect on your questions. Is there anything on your side that no from culturally from your own experience, maybe from the people that you learn? I know that you've written a book, Upgrade Diri. Anything that you can reflect from the stories that you shared in the book?
Yeah, yeah. Upgrade Diri. I'm so grateful to my teachers, Tuan Zamri, Tuan Ikram. I attended a workshop organized by PTS. And, I'm sort of addicted to learning. So
Uh,
I joined the class,
mm,
and part of the assignment was to submit a proposal. At that time, my wife just retired. You met Sita, Cikgu Sita, after 34 years. So and my wife is a graduate in Malay literature. So we wrote a proposal, and the publisher, the general manager, Tuan Ikram, liked the idea of an husband and wife of a Malaysian Indian writing book on Bahasa Melayu. And the beauty of it is every chapter of the book come with peribahasa. Peribahasa is also an Indian word called paribhasha.
ah,
Yeah, yeah. Meaning a kind of ancient wisdom. So something that I learned is the whole book is actually, Hurley, is a compilation of the lessons I learned from people who have attended my class.
that's interesting,
You
beautiful.
know, you and I are lucky after Form 5, we got to our parents, we go Form
Uh,
6 or matriculation or get a scholarship, go and do our university degree. In my case, right after that, master's, PhD, and multiple learning opportunities. But even today, almost 50% of people who sit for SPM exam in Malaysia is almost about 400 over 1,000.
mm,
About half of them will start working after SPM. Some of them could have been naughty. Parents may have a struggling family. Some of them may work in primary school to feed their family, environment is different. So just because they don't do well in SPM does not mean they are not clever. But to cut the long story short, I remember, my company called Samudra Management Consultant.
Yep.
We are a partner of UTM Space. Space stands for School of Professional and Continuing Education. So I had the privilege of starting this professional development path for working adults. Many of them are SPM in Malaysia, GCE O level. At 17, 18 years old, they start working. So these courses provide them an alternative learning. So when I conduct training for them, you and me, if you go and talk about quality, we can memorize Deming's book and write exam paper. But these factory operators can share real life quality issue when they are manufacturing world-class chips, where they have real conflict with the quality director or quality inspectors, where they have shipment issues, where they have customer complaints, where the product don't meet the requirement. In some cases, it don't fulfill safety requirements. So these working adults, when they are sharing their life experience, that's from lived experience, with some of the high impact journals written by professors. They may have a lot of good foundational theories, but they may not have the lived experience. So when I'm facilitating learning for these working adults, my experience is there's so much I can learn from them. So Upgrade Diri, my book with co-author with my wife, is actually a compilation of lessons learned. Since we are talking about Upgrade Diri, Hurley, my next book, I've not finalized the topic, but for now, let's call that Upgrade Diri 2.0. I met my friend Krishna Sami, one of our university friend, who is currently dedicating his life to help people to sign up for TVET, the technical, vocational, engineering and technology related courses, with the CGL Kemahiran Malaysia and so on. Because there's a lot of brilliant children who don't do well in SPM, but they're not aware that there's an alternative pathways. Last week, he came to my place here in Sitiawan. He conducted a workshop. Do you realize in Malaysia, even if you fail all the subject in SPM, as long as we can read and write, there are 100% government-funded program to upskill a person.
Wow.
Yeah, there's quite a number of institutions. They can teach us to lay bricks, make tiles, repair air condition, and in some cases, they could have been better than electrical engineers who may talk about drawing and design of an aircon, but whether the aircon works or not, nobody knows. Whereas these hands-on guys can do it. And there's real-life cases where after their certificate, CGL Kemahiran Malaysia, they continue with diploma. And then in Malaysia, we have beautiful universities like UNIMAP, University Technical Malacca, these kind of universities who acknowledge qualification from TVET, CGL Kemahiran Malaysia, and they can pursue their degree. In Upgrade Diri, I have one of my student or now friend, Parimala, her name. She studied ILP certificate. She's from an orphanage in Sitiawan with a guidance from ashram Uncle Aramban, and a few other leaders. Parimala, an orphan, started with certificate in ILP PRI. After that, she finished a diploma. She worked for me for a while, and she did internship in my previous organization when I was the head of a Marine Technology Academy. To cut the long story short, today she's a planner in Micron, a global leader.
That's it.
And more importantly, a couple of weeks ago or months ago, she called me and said she wants to sit for PMP exam.
Wow.
And she's finishing a master's now. And a few months ago, she sent me, I didn't ask, but somehow she wanted to share. I was so happy when she got 4 flat in her master's degree in computer science. So these are some of the reflection that I want people to
Mm,
know, that
mm,
when the environment is right, when someone facilitate the process,
mm,
it could be the leaders, it could be the community members, it could be you and me as teacher, that Cikgu Nazrin is talking about performance. If we can be a facilitator for the process, it could be your son who teaching you and the rest of the world, someone who was perceived as underperformer,
mm.
academically challenged, whatever, they can be the greatest teachers and
Wow.
making a difference in their life. So
Mm,
what I was telling, my next book, God willing, will be about these so-called underachievers and how they become much better version of themselves. And I'm starting compiling this SPM dropout, so to speak. I don't mean to rude. Dropout is not a pleasant word, but
mm.
yeah, the message is they didn't do well in SPM for whatever reason, but they do supremely well when they start going to the area they are comfortable. You
Wow.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that is the
I
book. Yeah.
I think that's when you mentioned about no people who are dropout, people who are not given enough privilege to learn, the environment has to be right. And I want to touch a little bit on technology. You mentioned about AI. Again, I'm bringing my good friend here. Okay, he likes to show off that he's strong, but he's not because he has no brain. He depends on what we feed him, right? That's why they call it machine learning. Uh, since today is Saturday, I want to bring in a bit of lighter note. I like Malaysian. We are now enjoying a lot of not really good, I would say, very the combat sport, um, boxing, Muay Thai, and one of the most popular now actually is Muay Thai. One championship. Since it's weekend, let's talk about a bit of that. Malaysian, we have Jojo, a young and rising fighter. Actually, he lost to his opponent in the last fight in Thailand, in Bangkok, by the name of Ondash, Ramadan Ondash. You know what happened was he was known. I'm trying to make it a bit controversial so that not people enjoy this conversation. He is known as a person who like to do trash talk. So he said a lot of good thing about him, and then he tried to create drama with the opponents. He said that I'll beat you. There's a beast in me that will come out, but he lost actually in the game. But the good thing about Jojo is actually he is doing that for marketing purpose, but he learned so much. For these fighters, when they learn, they use technology. Because of the recording is so easily available now, they really look at their opponent from the way they perform during the fight. Whether he use more of leg or he use more of hand, then they start re-strategizing just like military. Look at your opponent and then study and learn from how they do it because you learn from your mistake. Now, for any athlete, without this learning transfer, they cannot get better. No way they can. They must know if they are a sprinter, they know how they did in the past. That's why a lot of people like to post their PB. If people are in marathon, they put this is my PB. What is PB? Personal best. How do you know your personal best? You learn from your past. So I'm bringing this sport story because really it's about everyone. Everyone that is listening to our conversation actually can relate to this. A chef, it was salty in the last one. Let's reduce the garam, the salt, and it gets better. Uh, I'm trying to fix something actually with my motorcycle. I made a mistake actually. Then I learned something. So these are all that is very important. And what's missing now sometimes actually is the right environment. Uh, and we need to create culture, whether or not in organization or in family, so that everybody can learn and then be appreciated for what they have learned and share. So I want to touch a little bit when we talk about sharing, right? You need to be able to know what you learn. You need to be able to know how you can improve. Yes, we can do in a manner way, but the adab alone is not enough. Okay, it reminds me of what we learned about evaluation. I think you are as a goal what practitioner of Kirkpatrick. Can you relate something on how do you evaluate? Because to give feedback is also another skill, especially in organization. What something that you can share on Kirkpatrick or any on the evaluation side of learning?
Wow, thank you very much, Ali. Of course, Kirkpatrick is kind of a gold standard in training evaluation. I first was introduced to Kirkpatrick way back 1985
Mm.
when I was a first year student in Bachelor's of Science Education. I majored in chemistry, and our education degree is a 4 years course. And there's one semester we just study about evaluation. Donald Kirkpatrick, the founder of this Kirkpatrick model, wrote a paper for his PhD thesis on the art of evaluation, and he didn't even mention that it's a Kirkpatrick model. Such a humble person. The followers start documenting it as a
Ah.
Kirkpatrick and became a global standard for evaluation.
Mm.
So in the nutshell, you've been a student and you've been a facilitator. Right after the class, remember, people will evaluate the training.
Yes, yes.
What is the secret of getting a good score for the trainers?
That's a very good question. I never thought of that. If I were to get good score, right, especially in Malaysia, if you follow the no the standard evaluation, uh, I think you're talking about making good relationship with the audience.
Beautiful. Right. Good relationship,
Uh,
good engagement,
mm,
the content is relevant,
correct.
the environment is conducive, the food is
Mm.
good, and all, we like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
eat.
yeah.
So all that is important. I'm not saying it's not important,
Mm.
but in Kirkpatrick, we call that reaction.
Ah.
A good feeling. Like you go for a Rajinikanth movie, you come out with Padayappa and all that, you feel good, like a hero,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all the goal setting and all that, you get excited about it.
Uh,
But what Kirkpatrick reminding us is true learning
mm,
must be reflected in change in behavior. The reaction is what we call level 1 evaluation. And our assessment, exam, and all that, the learning, what Sheikh Nazrin also touched about, knowledge, skill, attitude, commitment, and confidence.
mm,
These are all the learning. That is level 2. But the essence of Kirkpatrick
mm,
is level 3, behavior. We
mm.
spoke about ilmu tanpa amal, sia-sia.
Ah, mm,
Learning without action is a waste. So the behavior part of it, what I love about Kirkpatrick is the emphasis on what we call as required drivers. The required drivers literally means the processes and systems that can help or facilitate the learner to apply. For
mm.
example, if you send someone for innovation course, but the environment, the meeting is just listen to me. How are people going to innovate?
Ah,
So that, if especially in a high power distance, yeah, I'm
mm,
the CEO, I'm the Tan Sri, or I'm the Dato, or so-called, whatever the position. If they create an environment where people are not comfortable to speak out, we spoke about psychological safety just now.
yeah.
So in Kirkpatrick, we talk about the significance of that behavior. And the one important aspect is critical behavior. Meaning, we must pay attention before training. What are one or two critical behavior that we must emphasize? Let's say Hurley 1.0 before training, Hurley 2.0 after training. What are one or two critical behavior
Mm,
that Hurley is going to demonstrate
mm,
so that you as an IT or agile coach can be a better version of yourself
mm,
for the level 4, that is result. That means end of the learning must be reflected in change on behavior that can add value,
mm,
that can improve the business result. So in Kirkpatrick, what we do is we always ask the question in the reverse order. What is the level 4 evaluation that you want to pay attention? What is the business result If the organization is suffering with, let's say, some quality issues, then we ask, what are the critical behavior that contributes to the quality issue? Maybe the way we are handling the machine is wrong, or with the way the maintenance of the machine is not done properly that affects the efficiency of the machine. And why are they not doing it? Maybe they don't have the relevant skills. And how do you make it effective? Make it touch their reaction. Describe the consequences of the poor quality to the business result. So, in nutshell, Kirkpatrick is a fantastic evaluation tool, but it requires long term. Remember the 10, 20, 70
Yes,
that
yes.
learn about claps? What happened in the class is the 10% teaching and learning. But the real learning is going to happen in the 20%, the social environment, coaching, mentoring, and so on. But the 70% of it is at the workplace.
Wow.
So if the workplace measurement data is not done, or if organization perform in silos, what happened in the training and what happened in the workplace is not integrated, learning will be a waste. In the Kirkpatrick or in the learning transfer, another field that I'm passionate about, we use the word learning scrap. In manufacturing, Hali, if 1% scrap, the managing director will come down to the line. I have a lot of friends, VPs and GMs in the manufacturing world. 1%, 2%, it will be escalated to the headquarters.
Yeah.
But in some learning, especially in leadership, behavioral, these power skills, the scrap can be up to 80%. And the learners are not even aware.
Yeah.
So imagine countries spend R1 billion in competency development. 800 million would have been scrapped. The money that we can use to feed poor children, have better bed in the hospital, and better table and chairs and toilet facilities in schools. These are the money being wasted. And some of the top leaders in the industry are not even aware of it. These are accidental project managers in capacity building.
Yeah.
Something I think people like you and me can help in creating more awareness.
I think thanks for sharing. I mean, I know it's so close to your heart. What I like about this model, the structure that it brings, I think this is where it's very important that we have a framework or a way of doing things correctly, and then that's where the learning happens as well. I want to address a very important issue that I noticed in our school environment. You know, my wife is now at school for LADAP, LADAP. In LADAP, basically, she needs to attend class to complete certain hours. I had a very interesting argument with my wife yesterday. Why do you need to complete hours for the sake of hours? You know, and then she shared there is this mandatory e-learning that our teachers at government school have to complete, so they can just switch on the recording, go masak, or play the video and then do something else, as long as they can complete the learning. So what is wrong there? So if we focus more on the KPI, not the actual learning and the benefit of it. When I touch about this KPI, I purposely want to bring in, as we close this conversation, to how we apply this in organization. Right? School is an organization. I had a conversation because I was a PIBG in one of the school here in Shah Alam, and I noticed there was a problem with discipline of the students. So I went around and checked the students' environment. I found actually a student with a lower from the B40, I mean, bit less fortunate people. They didn't get the right attention because maybe their parents are busy. Their parents could be, Grab rider. They don't have time to give attention. So I go in and talk to the principal of the school, the guru besar. Cikgu, I want to address to these students who are not performing. The guru besar didn't want to spend time with me to talk about these underperforming students. He was focusing more on the potential A student. so that the school rating, because of the KPI, can increase. So what is wrong with our leadership in school is actually we focus on how many A's, how many this and that. If people are at problematic areas, especially at government school, they are being ignored. So these are the one that is going to feed back to the community, that become the mat rempit. Because it's not that they want to be in that position. They were not given the right opportunity to learn, suiting their family situation, their growth opportunity, maybe even their food, the way they eat and whatnot. Some children have to work selling kueh lah, everything. So we need to be able to give attention, not to just focus on the KPI of the school. Now, in organization, what we call as OKR, objective and key result. Why I mentioned about this is because of the Kirkpatrick. Key result is basically the stage level 4, the result that you want to see. What do you deliver then is based on the objective. Objectives have to be based on the key result. Now, learning is one of the objectives, right? So in my organization currently, I need to complete certain hours as well. But it is not the way that it's designed. I need to attend certain thing. I need to be able to have interaction. I need to demonstrate that I know what I've learned. So we need to create that environment in our Malaysian organization at school. You come from universities, and in fact in organization as well. Tabung Haji is a big conversation now. My question is, are we learning something from that, besides making it as a political conversation? So I think these are very important. And from all this, you shared about your plan for your next book. Congratulations. I'm looking forward to another book. You also inspired me to follow you. I'm also thinking about moving from living with meaning into leading with meaning. And finally, I want to talk about leading as a leader. How do you lead with meaning? Meaning means actually impactful, purposeful, with all the good intention that it will leave your legacy or something that benefit the rest of the world. Anything you can reflect on this legacy as we close this conversation, Dr. Prabha?
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, there's so much of conversation, something that keep repeating in my mind is when some teachers are not focusing on so-called academically poor children. I understand schools, my wife is a teacher, you know, in whatever position I call myself a teacher. I hope each and every one of us reflects, what is the purpose of our existence? If our purpose is only to pay attention to the 10% top performance, I hope that's just now we spoke about Wasabadiri, do a bit of reflection. Perhaps it's not too much for us to ask the Minister of Education or the Minister of Human Resource and their so-called top leaders to reflect, what is the purpose of their existence? You and I are the stakeholders in the industry of teaching and learning. We may reflect, what is the purpose of our existence? If we can make a difference by creating a learning culture where everybody is facilitated, encouraged to be a better version of themselves. I must congratulate Malaysian government for fantastic opportunity for school leavers, those who literally fail every subject but can read and write minimum. There's a pathway to facilitate. So the purpose of every leader's, there's an African proverb that says, it takes a village to educate a child. In the context of connected world today, perhaps it takes a nation to educate a child. So once again, thank you very much to our Cikgu Nazrin, and all our fellow learners, and for this wonderful conversation. So I am leaving with more inspiration for two things. Number one, continue the joy of learning. And number two, be useful in helping someone to be a better version of themselves by facilitating learning through an effective strategy. So certificate in learning and performance strategy could be a beginning for us to make our journey as learning facilitators and learners to be more impactful, meaningful, and purposeful. Thank you very much for this wonderful conversation, Early, and thank you very much to all the fellow listeners and audience.
Thank you so much. I would like to address as well as a last statement before I close. You know, at the end of our life, I mean, I'm going back to spiritual a bit. Muslim, when he or she leaves this world, right, there are three things that they leave. Number one is amal jariyah, meaning whatever donation that you give to people, that's something that you will continue to receive the benefit of that even when you die already. Number one, amal jariyah. Number two is actually doa anak yang mendoakan anak-anak yang baik, meaning your children actually will pray for you even when you have died already. That will stay with you. And finally is ilmu yang dimanfaatkan. Cikgu Nazrin, thank you so much. I'm using this opportunity to thank to you. Ilmu yang dimanfaatkan. We have benefited from you. We want to benefit to others as well, so that even though we leave this world, we are leaving a legacy that is not going to stop. Even we are no longer in this world. That is something that we wish you will get with Cikgu Nazrin and also our fellow classmates. And thank you to you, Dr. Prabha. I've learned so much from you. Thanks for this conversation. I know that you need to go to visit your mother who is not healthy now. I hope everything is good. And thank you so much to our audience that you spend time with us until this stage. And we hope this conversation between me, Herdy Abdul Hamid, and Dr. Prabha.
Prabha,
And
we will
we hope,
continue and meet you soon again.
okay, thank you so much.